Okay. So last week we started talking about the idea of hypothesis testing. And the example that was used was I think it was a studio, right? Trying to buy a studio and measuring the sizes and whatnot. Okay. So now that I have chapter 6 open, I can open the slides. I'm going to formally go back to it again, okay, with a different set of examples. And hopefully these examples will further clarify the idea of hypothesis testing. Okay. Now, so let me do this. 1 second. I can't see my cursor. There it is. Okay, great. Okay, now, so the idea of hypothesis testing, okay, can be seen in those 3 examples too. Okay, so I'll begin with the first one. Okay, so it says a study of average shopping time in a large national houseware store found that the woman with female companion spent an average of 8.3 minutes shopping in such a store. Okay, so basically there's some big houseware store, and they have some data about all the customers. And what they're claiming is that a woman with a female companion spent an average of 8.3 minutes shopping. Okay, I know it's a bit clear. I know it's a bit unrealistic with the 8.3, but let's kind of roll with that. Okay, you believe that the average shopping time is greater than 8.3. Okay, now when you think, so there's only 2 lines here, but it is so important to pick up 2 pieces of information from that. Okay, and this is the common theme to hypothesis testing. Okay, for at least from the first example. Okay, the 2 things you're going to pick up would be there's something that's given already, right? And there's something that you're claiming. Okay, what's given here is the company, the National Houseware. It's claiming that the average spending time for a woman with a female companion is 8.3. Average time 8.3. Given. Okay. The second part of it is, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. Think back, like that studio example. Doesn't make sense. From my experience, okay, it should be greater than 8.3. Okay. Just keep that in mind. Those are the 2 things. Okay. You have something that's given, and you have something that's going to counter it. Look at the second example. A car manufacturer advertises that its new subcompact model gets 47 miles per gallon. Okay, I know no car that gets that. Okay, so you suspect that the mileage might be overrated. Okay, so let's just take a step back again. So what's given here is the car manufacturer's miles per gallon. It's claiming, or no, it's more than claiming, it's given that the average fuel efficiency for a certain model is 47 miles per gallon. Tremendous. Okay, I'll throw this one out to everyone here. Do you know your car's fuel efficiency? Yeah. How many miles per gallon does the car get? Anyone know your own car? Okay, Emily, do you know? You're smack right in the middle of my screen, so I'm looking at you. Do you know your car, how much miles per gallon you get in your car?
I want to say 29.
No
Wait, Mel, did you say 29?
I think so, yeah. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, so well, I'm sorry, Patricia, did you say, who said, was it Emily or Patricia?
It was me, Patricia. I think
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry.
29.
Okay, Patricia, 29 miles per, that's very good. Okay,
Maybe I'm
Emily?
wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. Okay, so Emily, I'm sorry. So do you know yours?
idea.
No idea. Okay, okay, so 29 is great. Okay, do you know, Emily, I assume you know what kind of car you drive, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you know how big your fuel tank is?
It's probably, I have a Jetta. It's probably small.
Got it. Okay. Okay. All right. So, but you can see from, thank you for sharing that. Okay. So, so in this example, 2 things given again. The car manufacturer is telling everyone average 47 miles per gallon. Okay. Given. Then you have the other one, the person, if you will, the researcher saying, hey, no way, too high. Okay. And that could be based on his own experience, his own data, whatever the case may be, but someone is countering that. Okay, you see the theme now? Okay, there are 2 different examples sharing common themes. Look at the third one. The third one says the drug 6-MP is used to treat leukemia. Okay, used to treat leukemia. a previously used drug treatment had a mean remission time of 12.5 weeks. Okay. The data indicate that the mean remission time using the new drug is different from 12.5 weeks. Okay. So you gotta maybe read it once or twice, okay? But still two common themes. One is something's given, right? Something's already known. And what's known is that past drug treatments on leukemia gives on average a remission time of 12.5 weeks. That's given, right? Made from data, clearly from data, okay, past data, done. Okay, what's countering that 12.5 weeks is the new drug, right? The 6MP. Okay, it's saying that, well, we're using this new drug, 6MP, and we found that the average remission time in this example is not 12.5 weeks at all. It doesn't say if it's greater than or less than, but it's more of saying it's just not. Okay, is that clear? Okay, everyone okay? Any questions there? Okay, in each of these three examples, okay, as I mentioned before, is it has two things going on: what is given, okay, and what someone is saying about the given. Okay, any questions? Okay, now just as maybe as a reminder is from last week when we did the studios, if you recall, what's given was the advertisement by some real estate company saying that the average studio size was, let's say 900 square feet. That was given. Okay, and in that example, it was me or it could be you that's countering that because you went in, you took a sample, you measured it and saying, wait a second, the average studio size is not 900, I'm getting 895. So it should be a lower, okay? So whether it's a studio or these three, they all have common themes, okay? Now, if you see the last line there, okay, so hypothesis testing refers to the formal procedure to accept or reject statistical hypotheses. The statement means nothing yet, okay? But if it helps, okay, the whole idea of hypothesis testing is this. You have something that's given, and you have something that, and you have some data that goes against it, okay? The question, hypothesis testing is like a game, okay? And the game is, how strong is your evidence? Okay, to say that what's given is not correct. How strong is it? How strong is your evidence that you can go against what's given? Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Any questions with the three examples? Okay. So, all right. Now let's look at the slide. Okay. Hypothesis testing is a recipe. Okay. 5 steps. Okay, it's a recipe of 5 steps. Now, before I start with the first one, just to set expectations. Okay, so prior to hypothesis testing, what you've all been exposed to is more or less 2 things: descriptive statistics and a little bit of probability. Okay, in a real life setting, in your job, so if you will, okay, I suspect you do more of descriptive statistics than anything else. How do you know that? For the very fact that if someone asks you or you convey information about an average, okay, average seems to be the most common statistic that you use, right? Right? Maybe in your profession, you're describing something, right? Maybe describing the average age, average height, or it could be temperature, it could be blood pressure, etc. Okay, you're describing something, descriptive statistics. Okay. And then right before the midterm, that small topic, I think it's chapter 5, is when you begin to introduce probability. Okay, so set expectations here. Hypothesis testing, okay, deals with probability, a lot with probability. Okay, as you'll say, it also uses a central limit theorem. We're going to tie that in. Okay, so once you see how probability and a central limit theorem work in hypothesis testing, it becomes not a big deal. Okay, it's just maybe a little bit of practice, understanding the language, and you should be fine. The reason why I'm saying this now is because from my own past experience teaching this course, the hypothesis testing is the most challenging topic for many students. Okay, And I think part of it is the fact that is because of the fact that it's a recipe. It's not as easy or direct as what you saw, say, from chapter 1. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, all right. So on that, step 1. Okay, the very first step in a hypothesis testing, okay, and we're going to clean that word up also, is to set up, there's something called the null and the alternate hypotheses. It all starts with that, okay? So now, if you read the two definitions of what they are, okay, it seems a bit too technical, I think. It says the null hypothesis. The notation, by the way, is always H0, as you see there. It says the null hypothesis is a statement that is under investigation or being tested. Okay, so if you read that without any type of context, it may be maybe a little bit confusing, if you will. Okay, so if I translate that over slightly, the null hypothesis is basically what is given. What is given? Okay, that kind of goes back to the last slide, in which I mentioned that each of the 3 examples share 2 common themes. One is something's always given, and the other one is someone is going against it. Okay, the given part is always the null hypothesis. Okay, so if you notice in the first example here, when you study a study of average sharpen time, in that problem, what's given is that the company is telling you that the average sharpen time for a female companion, for a woman with a female companion is 8.3 minutes. You can stop right there. That is what's given by the company. And that is displayed as the null hypothesis, H0 for null hypothesis. And notice that the mean, notice it's in Greek letters, mu, and that's because it's dealing with the population. Well, what's the population here? It's all the customers that shop in that store. Okay, so mu is equal to 8.3 minutes. Is that clear? Okay, setting up the null hypothesis is what is given. If you look at the second example, you can see that what's given is the fact that the average miles per gallon is 47, as you see here. Okay, again, it uses mu, population mean. Why? It's because it's coming from the car manufacturer. Okay, the population is all the cars from that particular company. So we're dealing with population. In the third one, same idea. What's given is the fact that the average remission time from past drug treatments is 12.5 weeks. The population is probably maybe from a particular hospital and looking at all the drug treatments for leukemia and measuring their remission time. Okay, so it's getting everything. Okay, any questions with the null hypothesis? Okay, is it clear? Okay, H0 always stands for the null hypothesis. And in every one of these cases, it's the average that's given to us, mu. Okay, so the alternate hypothesis you see here, or sometimes you call it the alternative hypothesis, H1, okay, this is the part in which you're going against what's given, okay? You're going against it. So now if you look at this carefully, okay? Okay, so going back to shopping, it says that you believe that the average shopping time is greater than 8.3 minutes, okay? Greater than 8.3. So let me kind of add some more things to that so you can see what's going on. When that second statement, you believe that the average shopping time is greater than 8.3 minutes, that is coming off from data that that person has probably collected for him or herself, okay? Maybe, okay? And from the data, I'm just making this up, and say from the data of, I don't know, say 30 customers, if you will, okay? Or 40 or whatever the case may be, the average shopping time collected by that individual, making this up, happens to be 9 minutes, okay? 9 minutes. And I think we agree 9 is greater than 8.3, okay? So now here's what I'm trying to get with that. Notice that the alternate hypothesis or alternative hypothesis is directional, okay? It's not saying that the mean should be 9 minutes. as collected by the individual. That's not what this is saying. The 9 minutes collected by the individual, it's telling him herself that, well, wait a second here, it should be greater than 8.3. How much greater? Don't know. I got 9 minutes, but it's definitely can't be 8.3. Is that clear? The data gives you the direction. The data does not say that it should be that value. Okay. Alternative hypothesis is directional. So sharpen time greater than, and there it is. It's reflected. The average sharpen time should be greater than 8.3 minutes. Any questions with the first bullet? Is that clear? For the second one, same idea. Okay. It says you suspect that the mileage might be overrated. So maybe the data would be, that you are a faithful, say Honda, right? A Honda customer. Yeah, everyone in your family buys Honda. Okay. So you know enough about Honda to know that miles per gallon cannot be true. Okay. That's data. Okay. So maybe I'm again making this up. Maybe the miles per gallon should be really 40 miles per gallon. Maybe, okay, from your data. But you're not telling the car manufacturer that should be 40. That's not what you're saying. What you're saying is that 47 is too high. Okay, it's too high because you got in 40 from your data, directional. The alternate hypothesis, the average should be less than 47. Is that clear? Right, directional. You're not saying it should be 40. You're saying that it should be less than 47. Okay, questions there? Okay, now you look at the last one. Same idea, okay? So this one is more interesting because it says that the data indicates that the mean remission time using 6MP, right? That's the research data, is different from 12.5 weeks. So let me add some things to it. Let's just say that this type of drug, right, from your data, making numbers up, the mean remission time happens to be 13 weeks. Not 12.5, but 13. But notice the alternate hypothesis. Notice the statement. It says the data indicates that the mean remission time is different from 12.5 weeks. I had 13. I'm not saying that it should be greater than 12.5. What I'm saying for this study, as an example, is that 13 is not 12.5. Okay. Maybe for this third bullet, they don't care about if it's greater than or less than, but it's not hitting the target. Okay. So I had 13 weeks. I'm not saying it's greater than. I'm just saying that the mean maybe should not be 12.5 weeks. Okay. So null is what's given. Alternative or alternate is what you're claiming it should be, whether it's greater than, less than, or not equal to. Okay, this is your step one. Okay, any questions with the null and alternate hypothesis? Is it clear? Okay. Notice that, yeah, question.
Okay, so you said that instead of having 12.5, you have 13. So you can actually say the U is not 13.
Now, so if I have 13, right? I think I use, is this Bocanola?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if your data, this is for the third example, if you had a mean remission time of 13 weeks, okay, that 13, okay, how it can be used are two ways. You can say that 12.5 weeks is too low. It should be more than that, okay, because I'm getting 13. So you can have the alternate hypothesis saying mu greater than 12.5. You can say that if that's what you're claiming. In this example, what's being claimed is the fact that your 13 is not 12.5. What's being claimed is that the 12.5 weeks it's not, doesn't seem right on average because you're getting 13. Okay. So Bokuna, I'm not sure, did I answer a question?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any other questions? Okay, this is your step one. Okay, the most important step, okay, is understanding what the null and alternate hypotheses are. It is so important, obviously, as a recipe, is that if we messed up in set up hypotheses, it will snowball to the rest, and the experiment becomes invalid. Okay, you got to throw the whole thing away. Okay, so questions. Everyone okay? Null and alternate hypothesis, H0 and H1. Okay, so then you move to the second step. The second step is something called the significance level. Okay, so now I think I believe we might have went over that last week. Okay, so nonetheless, the significance level, right? Sometimes they call it the alpha level. The Greek letter, as you see here, is alpha. Okay, reading this off, is defined by the researcher before any statistical tests are conducted. And the common alpha levels are 1%, 5%, 10%, and so forth. Okay. This first line does not tell you what the purpose of that is. It just says there's a number that's kind of set up. Okay. Now, all of this is maybe meaningless unless you go through one full example. Okay. But to give you a sense of the high level on what significance level is, or the alpha level, okay, think of the alpha level or significance level as the decision maker. Okay, decision maker. Okay, just tie that in with the word decision maker. The reason for that, okay, speaking at high level, hypothesis testing, as I mentioned before, is a game. It's a game in which you're asking yourself, is your data, is your evidence strong enough to go against what's given? Is it strong enough? The way to determine if your evidence is strong enough at the very end, and you'll see it, is you have to go through this level here. This alpha level, these percentages are cutoffs, okay? Are cutoff marks, okay? That's why I call it the decision maker, okay? It will tell you whether or not your evidence is strong enough to go against the claim, okay? For now, okay? But again, tie in the word significance level or alpha level with decision maker. It will make super sense once you see an example done, okay? All right. Feel free to ignore this for now because it won't make any sense yet, okay? All right, so that's your step 2. Step 3 is now you have to apply the test. You got to apply the math, if you will, okay? And you notice this though, okay? Okay, it looks like there are two ways to look at it. A one sample Z test, that's a name by the way, or one sample T test, just a name. Now, if we look at this first, a one sample Z test, okay, and look at this formula, does this formula look familiar to anyone? Does this look familiar to anyone? What do you say there? Yeah, who said yes? Yeah, it does it look familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's familiar about the formula?
X bar.
Okay, right. It has a sample mean, sure. Sample mean, what else?
The X bar.
Right, X bar, which is a sample mean. What
Yeah.
else? What else should it look? What else is
World of the N.
right? The N. What is N?
Sample.
Sample
Sample size. Okay, what is sigma?
standard
Standard
deviation.
deviation.
Right.
Yeah.
Now put this together. Where did you see sigma over square root of N? Anyone recall?
When
The supermarket question.
Deviation.
Yeah, right. That's right.
I
Good.
don't
You saw it from the supermarket question. That's one. So where else did you see it?
If you have a sample that you want to find a sample mean,
Keep going.
Z-score? Are you talking about Z-score?
Yeah,
when you were doing
my question is,
the sample
where
from
did
a
you see
sample.
this from? Where did you see this
when
from?
you want to find a population's mean or something.
Something.
A
okay.
sample from a sample.
Yeah, I think you mean the sampling distribution of the sample mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was that long word from chapter 5. This
Yes.
should look very familiar to all of you, okay? Coming from the supermarket question, okay, if you will, or especially from the central limit theorem. Okay, remember that the whole thing we went through? Okay, this is the
Yes.
yes. Okay, so this is the tie-in. Okay, so let me draw a diagram to kind of link everything up so you can get your aha moment. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'll switch over to the whiteboard. Okay, here's what's happening. Okay, so I'll put this here. Sorry. One sample z-test. Just run this out. Z is equal to x bar minus mu 0 sigma over square root of n. Let's put that on the side. Okay. Now, here's what's going on, okay? And you'll see why this makes sense, okay? All right, if I use, of the 3 examples, that was shopping, the car, and the drug, which one do you think if you relate the most to? Okay, so Tony Ann, you want to pick one for me? Of the 3, I'll use one and take it through. Which one do you think you could relate more to? Is it the shopping, the car, or the drug?
You could do the shopping.
Right. Okay. Shopping. Great. Okay. So I like that also. I suspect that everyone here could relate to shopping also. Okay. All right. So here's what's going on. Okay. So you have a store, right? So Tony Ann, do you mind? Okay. To make it a little more realistic, if you will, what store? Just give me a store.
Macy.
Macy's. Macy's. Okay. Sure. Macy's. Okay. Thanks. Anyone here shop at Macy's? My wife does. Okay, anyone else? Yeah, I see another hand. Good, okay. Does anyone, unless anyone do online shopping more?
Yeah.
Maybe, okay. Different animal? Okay, so let's say Macy's, okay. You know, the more details you have, the more realistic it is, the better you can relate to it. That was why I was asking, okay. So here's Macy's. So this is the population, okay. Now, so this is X. This is X, okay. Now, in X, you have a bunch of points, right? A bunch of data. Okay. Each X represents a shopping time, right? A woman with a female companion. So it's the shopping time. Okay. Shopping time. Okay. Keep it nice and simple. All right. So far, so good. Each X, each point inside here represents basically one data point, one customer, if you will. Or meaning a woman with a female companion. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this point could be 8 minutes. This point could be 9 minutes. This point could be 8.5 minutes, and then so forth. Okay. It's data. This is your data from the company. That's why it's population. Now, as you know, any variable, you always want 2 pieces of information. Okay. And what are the 2 pieces of information that you always get? Always.
Mean and standard deviation.
Yeah, the mean and the standard deviation. The mean, was this Tiffany?
Yeah.
Okay. Was the mean 8.3 minutes? Right, I believe so, right? It was 8.3 in the example? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making up the standard deviation, okay? Just kind of push it through. Okay. So let's just say the standard deviation is 1.2 minutes, okay? I'm making that up. But more importantly, this is given. Is that clear so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is what Macy's advertising. Okay, 8.3 minutes. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so now comes the data. Okay, so maybe Tony Ann says, well, this can't be. I shop with my best friend at Macy's, and there's no way the shopping time is 8.3 minutes. Okay, I can see that, right? Correct? Right? So she would say something like, well, here's the data. Okay, so the data is coming from some sample. Does that make sense? Right, maybe some sample. Okay, and let's see here. Again, Tony Ann, if you don't mind, if you can help me out a little bit. Of course, this is a little made up. Okay, so you shop with your friends and family. Let's just say that's your sample. Okay, so what's N? How many friends and family can you see yourself shopping together with?
Maybe like 3 to 10.
3. Okay, I want to say 30 because you're very popular to me, I think. Okay. All right. So
I don't know if I would shop with 30 of my friends at the same time.
okay. So just kind of push this along. I'm going to say, you're a big shopper. I'm gonna say 30 people. You love people around shopping. It's an event. It's an event, okay? Shopping should always be seen as an event. Okay, so is that, can I put 30? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's perfect.
I appreciate that. Okay, so there is n is equal to 30. Okay, now I'm just come pushing this. Now, obviously with 30, okay, what's the mean shopping time from 30, Tony Ann?
Um,
Right,
What's
it's
the
not
mean shop-
8.3 minutes. What? Just give me some number.
maybe like an hour. 60
Wow.
minutes.
Okay, right. Okay, 60 minutes. Okay, so I'm going 60 minutes right here. Way different than 8.3, but drives the point home. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Do we agree that this is one data point? Okay, does that make sense? Okay, now one data point from what though? This is from X. Okay, you took a sample of 30. The mean happens to be 60. This is a data point. What's the variable here now?
Would that be population?
Yeah, so what is it? This is the population, but what's the variable? Okay, Tony, do you know? Can you connect the dots a little bit? This 60 here that you gave me, it's in here now, right? So what variable should this be?
Time spent shopping.
So it'll be this variable should be X bar. This is X. X is individual people, right? Individual customers. Okay. Tony and pulled a sample of 30, right? Friends and family, if you will, and the average is 60 minutes. This 60 minutes is an average, correct? It's an average from 30. You see this as a data point. If you see this as a data point, then X bar is the variable that you're looking at now.
Okay, I see.
Does that make sense? You're not looking at individuals anymore. You're looking at averages, right? And you're looking at one particular average, which is 60. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So notice that you're moving from X to X bar. Okay. You're moving from X individuals now to a sample. Okay. So that goes back to that long word in which everyone saw from chapter 5. Sampling.
Central.
Yeah, central limit theorem, sampling distribution of the sample mean. That's what this is now. Okay, and you've collected from your data one data point, which is 60. But that's an important data point because that's your evidence to go against the 8.3. Okay, so far so good, right? So now, this 8.3, so Emily, hi. So, okay, if you don't mind, can you help me out here a little bit? Is that okay? All right, so thanks. This 8.3 goes right now is with what variable, Emily? What variable does this 8.3 go with right now?
X.
Is it the X or is it the X bar? Right now, though.
X.
Right, because it's given, right? Because Macy's advertising goes with X. Okay, now don't mute yet, okay? So do you understand the idea of going from X to X bar?
Mm-hmm.
Right, because Tony Hand gave us one average data point, which is 60 minutes. Okay, now, so we need to study, Vance, I need to understand or study the distribution of X bar. So when I say that, you want two things again, correct? You want to know what the mean of X bar is, and I need to know what the standard deviation of X bar is. Okay, because your data revolves around an average of, say, 60 minutes, okay? What is the mean of X bar, Emily? What should it be? What should it be?
60?
No, 60 is the data that Tony and collected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, isn't it would be the same as
Yes.
Maybe the 30 that you
Yeah, it'll be the same as X. It's the same as X, which is 8.3. Now, why can we say that, Emily? And I think Bocanola said it earlier. Why can I say that the mean of X bar is the mean of X? What tells us that? What's the name of the theorem again?
the
Central
limit theorem?
central.
Yes, central limit theorem. This is the connection. The central limit theorem allows us to say that now, okay? All right. Now, and from the central limit theorem, sigma of X bar, if you remember the formula, it's going to be sigma over the square root of n. Okay. Sigma is the number I made up. Okay. I think I wrote as, what was it? 1.2, which is here. So that's 1.2. And then I increased Tony Ann's party pool, if you will, from 3 to 30. So now you have square root of 30. Done. Okay. So the central limit theorem gives us information about this distribution. This distribution is what hypothesis testing is focusing on. Well, how do you know that? Well, look at the slide. If you go back to slides, okay, look at this. Look at step 1. What are we studying here? We're studying averages. Okay, we're studying averages here. Okay, so which means that the distribution that we are focusing on for hypothesis testing must be averages. Okay, right? The central limit theorem connects x to x bar. Okay, right? So now hopefully you see a connection now. Okay, now that I have the information about x bar through the central limit theorem, I know the distribution, right? So if the sample size was big enough, Emily, if you don't mind, one more time. If the sample size was big enough, what's the shape of the distribution of x bar? What should it look like?
Like
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, it's exactly even better. Here it is, right? Here is the normal distribution of x bar. Okay, and then here's Macy's, and here's Macy's mean, 88.3. And Tony Ann's data point, right? 60 minutes is all the way up here. Okay, right? So this 8.3, which belonged to X in the beginning, correct? Is also belongs to X bar by the central limit theorem. Okay, so you actually have 2 data points. One is what Tony Ann provided from her data, and the other one is what's given from Macy's. Is that clear? Okay, this is the connection. This is why the central limit theorem is important, because you're able to pull in the average of X. Okay, the average of Macy's sharpen time. Because if you cannot pull it in using this formula, or in other words, if this formula is incorrect, there's no way to do hypothesis testing. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, clear? Okay, Phil, you good? Okay, excellent. Okay, now, so let me kind of work with this for a second here, okay?
I have a question.
Tiffany, yes.
So when you write mu, and then x bar
Yes.
in the formula, is that mu 0?
Yeah, the mu 0, good point. Okay. The mu 0 is the 8.3. Okay. All right. So let me go back here. Is this what you, Tiffany, you're referring to this, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. The mu 0 is the mean. I should maybe show you if this helps you. This should be mu x bar. That would be the 8.3.
Okay.
Okay. And what value should this have, Tiffany? The one that I just circled. What value do you think I'm gonna put in there?
60.
Yeah, so, and then so on. Beautiful, okay? So now, the purpose of this, okay, this is a step 3. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this out for you. The purpose of this, okay, is to allow us to compute a probability in the end, okay? So now, so I want to position this, okay. The one sample z-test, I'm going to write descriptively, allows us to find a probability. Okay, just understand this first, okay? And I'm going to go back to that formula in step 2 and tie that in. I'm going to link that up better, okay? But the one sample z-test will allow us to find a probability, okay? Just keep that in mind, okay? So if I go back to the slide, okay? We are going to use this test because all the information are given to us, meaning X bar, I think Tiffany mentioned, was 60 minutes, mu 0, which is your 8.3. Notice mu zero is there. Sigma was 1.2. I think that's what I wrote. And then N was 30, okay, which Tony had helped me out with, okay? So I'm going to use this test. How it's used, just give it a minute, okay? We'll see, because the next step will clarify this position, okay? So let's go right into the next step. And there it is, okay? The p-value, okay? Now, in many research papers, I should say, in any research papers that you'll get a chance to read or maybe do your own research, when you are testing, when you are conducting a hypothesis testing, the p-value is probably the most important number that you want to get out of this whole hypothesis test, okay? The p-value, in short, is it's a probability, okay? It's but it doesn't help you in a sense that, well, it's a probability, but what does it give me, okay? Here it is in a nutshell, okay? All of this that you see are technical. Well, let's kind of remove the technical description and just kind of see intuitively first, okay? Feel it out first. You can always go back to it, okay? So here's what the p-value means, okay? I'm gonna go back to this diagram, okay? The p-value. Which is a probability, okay? Now, here's how it works. This is what's given, right? Given, correct? Which is basically the null hypothesis, right? The null hypothesis is what's given. This is your data. And the data is going against the given, okay? Now, basically what the p-value, the way the p-value works is the following, okay? The p-value basically says, what is the chances of Tony getting this type of average? 60, right? Way much more than 8.3. Okay. But what are the chances of her getting this though? This is my distribution. Okay. What are the chances of her getting 60 minutes if we assume that Macy's given of 8.3 minutes, if we assume Macy's average of 8.3 minutes, okay? So I'll write this down for you, okay? So in this context, the idea of a p-value is this. What are the chances of getting basically 60 minutes? Sorry, 60 minutes, assuming Macy's average is correct. Okay. What was Macy's average again, Tony? Tony N?
Eight point three.
Right, 8.3, which is right here, okay? This is 8.3, and this is your data. The idea of a p-value is, what are the chances of her, of Tony N, getting this value, assuming that Macy's is correct, okay? Assuming that Macy's average of 8.3 is correct. Moreover, what we know about this 8.3 is that this 8.3 is the mean of X bar. Okay, correct, right? That's from the central limit theorem. Okay, that's a side note. Okay, so now before we continue with back to slide, are there any questions with this description? Okay, think of the p-value as the chances of obtaining your evidence, assuming that the null hypothesis is correct. Okay, remember the null hypothesis is what's given. Okay, all right, so far so good. Okay, now if I go back to the slide, okay, notice that the p-value, remember, just think of it as the probability, how we described it. Looks like there's three pictures here, right? Well, yeah, there are three pictures. Okay, so Mary Walsh, Mary there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're following so far?
Yep.
All right. Now, so the three pictures here, okay, okay, keep it on mute. I'm going to ask you this question here, Mary.
Okay.
So, so the p-value could be one of these three pictures, okay? Each one of these pictures seems like is dependent upon the alternate hypothesis. Okay, do you see that, Mary?
Yeah.
In our example of shopping times, which picture should we be looking at? Is it the first one, the second, or the third? Which one, Mary?
The second one,
Yes. Is that a guess, or you see why it's the second one?
because we're thinking
Yeah.
that it would be greater.
Yeah,
than-
absolutely. Thank you. That's exactly right. Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay, so the way we want to look at probability of the p-value is that we're looking at in terms of the second picture. We are using the second picture because the alternate hypothesis reflects the direction that we gave it in the beginning. We assume that the mean shopping time is greater than 8.3 minutes. Okay, is that clear? And you notice in this picture, okay, notice what I mean by directional. Greater than, look at the area, greater than. Less than, okay? We'll worry about the not equal to next week, okay? So, but directional is more intuitive. If it's greater than, the area is to the right. If it's less than, then the area is to the left, okay? So in our case, okay, let me go back to this. If I redraw this, remember, this is X bar. Here's 8.3. This is assumed, right? We're going to make that assumption that Macy's is correct. This is Tony Ann's data. Here's 60, okay? Our alternate hypothesis, if you remember, it was mu greater than 8.3, okay, as Mary reminded us, okay? Which means that the p-value, remember, now I know what p-value means. It's basically the probability of obtaining that type of evidence. What type? This type. Here is 60. Because it's directional, you look at an area to greater than or the area to the right. This is your p-value. It's the probability of X bar greater than 60. This is what you're looking for. Okay, is that clear? At this point, we should be in familiar territory. Okay, right? Tony, you're nodding. Does that make sense? Okay, everyone, any questions? Okay. Now, how does this tie in to the one sample z-test? Okay, let's answer that, okay? So before answering that, I'll ask a broader question, okay? So if everyone sees that this p-value is nothing more than the probability to the right of 60, okay? How do you do in Excel? Because a lot of the probabilities that you've done uses Excel or Google Sheets. What function do you use? So someone give a shout. What function would be using to get an area, in this case, the area to the right?
Say
One,
one
minus norm dist.
Yeah, beautiful. 1 minus norm dis, or the function is norm dis. Absolutely. So I'll write as, and this is correct, 1 minus norm dis. Okay, so let's see if this makes sense. So in norm dis, okay, what's the first number that you put in? You ever recall the order of the numbers?
X.
X.
Yeah, so in this case, what's the value? What value are you going to put in then?
60.
Is
Yeah,
that the 60?
60, that's right. What's the next thing you're going to put in? That's correct. Benito, right?
Yes.
Okay, what's the next value you're going to put in, Benito? I'm also running out of time. I'm going
The
to finish.
mean.
Yeah, what's
The
the mean?
mu,
The mu, that's right. What's the mu?
8.3.
that 8.3 that they gave?
Yeah, it's right there, 8.3. So far, so good. Benito, you're going to take us home. Let's see. What's the next one? He's right so far.
That would be standard deviation. What is
Yeah,
it?
beautiful. Okay, let's swap. Who's talking again?
Joanne.
Joanne, yes. Hi, Joanne. So, yeah, it's a standard deviation. What is the standard deviation of X bar?
It's 1.2
1.2 did you give?
Over.
square root of 30.
30.
Yes. And then of course, the last one is going to be is true.
True.
Excellent. Now, here's the tie-in. This is the mean, and this is the standard deviation or standard error, okay? When you put this in, you will get an answer. Trust me, this is the right answer. By the way, this is what I was referring to in terms of uploading your work to me. I just need to see this written down. And then once I see this, I know it's got to be right, okay? I don't need to see it in Excel, okay? Anyway, so this is the actual p-value. That's the answer, okay? Now this, when you do norm dis, as Benito and Joanne mentioned earlier, what's going on behind the norm dis, okay, if Professor Vidori never explained it, is this, okay? This is my last line, and I'm going to go over maybe about 2 or 3 minutes. So I appreciate your patience, okay? So behind the norm dis. Okay. So when we enter in, as Benito told us, it was basically, it was 60, 8.3, and
1.2.
thank you, over square root of 30,
Sorry.
right? Then
And
true.
true. Right.
Okay. What's happening behind the scene is this, behind the scenes, okay, is this. It takes all of these numbers, and what it does is it converts it to a z-score. Behind the scenes. But when you're doing it in Excel, you don't need to think that way, okay? But I'm telling you what's happening, because now you see another linkage, okay? The z-score is given by, it takes these 3 numbers and converts into a z-score. The z-score is given by 8.3, not 8.3, sorry. It's given by 60 minus 8.3 divided by 1.2 over square root of 30. Does this look familiar to you now? Right? This is exactly x bar minus mu 0 over sigma over square root of n.
Yes.
When you enter these numbers in, this is what's going on behind the scenes. It's using a z-score to give you the area. That's why it's called the one sample z-test, because it's using this so that we can use norm dis. Okay. Now you see the linkage. Okay.
Yes.
So it uses the one sample z-test to find the p-value. That's the connection. Okay, norm dis is basically all of this that you see here. The central limit theorem basically allows us to move this, the 8.3 minutes, into the mean. The hypothesis, and we're going to continue this next week, the hypothesis testing makes this assumption, okay? Okay, so when you do norm dis, you will get some p-value. Whatever that p-value is, that is the probability of Tony Ann obtaining that type of evidence, assuming that Macy's is correct. That's the big thing, assuming Macy's is correct, okay? This is a good stopping point. I apologize, I think I'm 5 minutes over. I will stop here, okay? What I'll do is about 8 o'clock or so, I will create an assignment that says upload midterm work or something like that, okay? You will have until midnight to do it, to upload. If you don't have anything, then there's no upload, okay? It's a means to supplement what you did in readily. Is that clear? Okay, so you
Yes.
should see it by 8 o'clock. You will have until midnight tonight to upload if you have anything, okay? So otherwise, Boconola, if you could just stand, if you could just wait till everyone leaves, we'll have a separate conversation with you. Otherwise, everyone enjoy the rest of your night, and I will see you next week. Okay, so have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Professor, can I ask you a quick question? as
Before
well?
you do that, I'm going to stop recording, okay?
Sure.